All right, Friday, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin with some breaking news, though. President Trump has reportedly been in the Oval Office all day, constantly being updated also on the downed American fighter jet over Iran and our 2 pilots. There's also reports, though, that the president is currently meeting with his national security team on new matters. More on this in just a second. Also, Congressman Thomas Massie congratulating Todd Blanche's elevation to the interim AG position, but Massie adding, saying that Blanche has only 30 days to release the rest of the Epstein files before he becomes criminally liable. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul wants to lower the retirement age of public workers like teachers and nurses to 55. It's only going to cost the taxpayers $1.5 billion. Democrats for you. But first, they shot down one of ours. Trump responds with pink mist in parking lots. Let's do this. All stop. When one of ours is down, we go get them. Unfortunately, today, as you probably heard, an F-15 was, from what appears at this time, shot down over Iran. And in response, Donald Trump is absolutely pounding Tehran's infrastructure beyond just military targets. Now, thankfully, special forces have rescued one of the pilots, but the second one's still not been recovered as this time. Folks, this is like the worst thing to hear over the radio. Thank God they recovered one, but the only thing that every platform, every ally and unit in that region should be concerned about right now is recovering that pilot. Hopefully alive, but also worst case scenario, I hope not, but worst case scenario, the body. This is the worst case scenario, that every soldier, every pilot, every operator, everyone is trained for this scenario. Because if Iranian forces or whoever we're fighting at the time capture this pilot, you know what they're going to do on a live stream for the world to see. We've seen this before, like in Fallujah, when the same type of militants hung and burned the bodies of 4 American contractors. One was a former Navy SEAL. This is why I have been so critical of what I thought were our allies in NATO. To date, I have heard no reports of these nations offering to help with this rescue. Look, as a guy who was on the ground with this as our primary mission in Iraq, like this was our standby mission, 24/7, I'm telling you, this scenario is so serious that it's briefed to every single person before they land in any combat theater anywhere in the world, with escape and evasion guidelines and a number of other things. Anyone who could even potentially find themselves in a scenario like this is highly trained at what we call SEER school, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. The CSAR, which is the Combat Search and Rescue Teams, that was, like I said, one of my team's primary standby missions overseas. So let me explain how serious this is, okay? This is an all stop. The president is immediately notified when this goes down. We turn aircraft carriers around. We stop all missions in that region, and all resources are devoted to this because America does not leave people behind. Anyone. You write that blank check, up to and including your life, you go down fighting for our mission, not even Mother Nature is going to stop our troops from coming to get you. And that pilot, if they're alive, let me tell you what they're going through and why you need to be praying for this young hero like you have never prayed before. You saw Black Hawk Down. You've seen Lone Survivor. That's about as real as it gets right now. Put yourself in this scenario. You just ejected from an aircraft at the speed of sound. You probably landed hard because you're in a round chute in a chair, probably injured to some extent. You got to get off the X. That's the terrain right there. Wide open, remote mountain regions. Where are you going to go? Your landing area is compromised because a plane crashed, and anyone that doesn't like America is coming to get you fast. We just saw, within an hour, Iran posted a huge bounty on this pilot. Yeah, I don't exactly know. We know the area, but we don't know exactly where this pilot landed. But this is pretty much what the terrain is like. We showed you that. It's in a region with as many as 1,000 militants, at least somewhat en route to come get you. We already know from the pictures of the Iranian media, the debris that they have found, that they found the crash site pretty fast. Now, this pilot probably has a pistol, some water, some sort of beacon. Hopefully the radio survived their ejection, but now you're in a land where literally anyone might be an enemy. There are no friends. In a perfect scenario, if not injured, this pilot can move maybe 15 to 20 minutes at a mile. But, you got to move. okay? Because you're not going to hold out that speed for very long in this terrain. It's almost 100 degrees during the day. But ultimately, that outer circle you see there, you need to get 4 miles away from this crash zone to have any semblance of security, and you got to move fast. That's why in BUDS and SEAL training, every Monday morning, 4-mile timed run, because that's the distance. Like, I'm not going to get into the tactics that pilot's employing, because that part of training is pretty classified for a good reason. But you're alone. You're trying to invade an entire army that's really motivated to find you. Anyone who's been through SEER school, probably watching this right now, you guys know the multitude of factors here. It's pretty uneasy. You can't transmit on an open radio frequency because it's being monitored. You have limited battery life, and you have a tractor, but again, you're limited to battery on that, so you usually have predetermined windows that you transmit on. The good news is it got dark pretty quickly. Okay, it's like 2 in the morning, I think, right now in Iran. And we own the night. This pilot definitely knows we're coming. Probably can even hear the planes above their head. So we got drones with IR sensors. We probably have AC-130 gunships in the region. That pilot is out there, and we are going to find them. This is the universal code of soldiers, and what concerns me is we've gone at it alone. I have seen no evidence of any offers from our allies here. And once this conflict wraps up, Trump should just get the hell out of this alliance on that basis alone. It doesn't matter if you're from France or Spain. Like, I don't like any country in Europe, basically. Like, they have snubbed us and all this stuff, but if the roles were reversed tonight, me and I'm sure my next guest would be the first people on a plane to go get them, because that's the code. I would still go get them to this day. This makes me absolutely irate that they're sitting this one out, especially after they roped us into Ukraine, which was definitely not our war either. But the two questions most people are probably asking right now is, one, how did we only recover one pilot? Weren't they in the same plane? Yeah. And two, how did this plane get shot down in the first place? So the first thing is, this plane is doing between look, if you're being pursued by a surface-to-air missile, you got your hand on the throttle. So you're doing between 1,600 and 1,400 miles per hour. Now, if one ejection seat is 5 seconds behind the other, that's a 2-mile difference in travel. Think about that. Factors like wind, altitude, parachute deployment, weight of pilot, what seat they were in. Look, some of these pilots could land 5 miles apart with all those factors. But the second part of this is how it happened. This is going to drive you insane. You keep saying, we own the airspace. Yeah, we do, okay? They don't have any planes in the air, but we also own the airspace in Afghanistan in 2005, when half my platoon was shot down as I was getting ready to check into Team 10 in 2005. Shot down, ironically shot down by what is now likely known as a Stinger missile that, ironically, we provided the Taliban during the Cold War to shoot down Soviet aircraft. So great job on that one, CIA. Or like in Extortion 17, the deadliest day in SEAL history, when another helo full of my brothers was shot down, likely by ammunition, the same ones that we provided to the Taliban decades prior. We know some of those untracked. We gave them more than 2,000, just like you see there. 2,000 munitions, SA-7 surface-to-air missiles. They made their way over to Iran over the years. We have tracked this, and you can see how small they are. Put in the trunk of a car. It's not something that you can find from 20,000 feet on an ISR mission. Sure, we can find the big ones that Russia and China sent them, like the big ones mounted on truck, but these man-packable rockets are still out there, and there's hundreds of them. I keep saying, like, this is war. I don't think anybody's changing their decision who's over in the fight right now. But I said it last night, we got to finish this at any cost whatsoever. This should not deter anybody. And every person who joins the military knows these risks. Once this pilot is recovered, resume mission. I mean, it looks like Trump's already doing it in a safe zone away from them. But we got to finish this mission and then come home. And I just want to remind you folks, this is the first plane shot down in 6 weeks of combat missions by Iran. We had 2 accidental shootdowns by a host nation. But do not let this sway you away from finishing the job. Stay the course. Guy who helped smoke bin Laden, Robert O'Neill, and Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, former F-16 fighter pilot. Rob, you and I were on the ground. We were always on call for a CSAR mission. This is real bad.
Yeah, Carl. As we know, during normal flight ups, we will have search and rescue teams out there, especially now with the bombing campaign. Air Force dudes will be out there. On land bases, we got Navy and Marines on the ships that are out there. We don't want to go do combat search and rescue. The good news is we do own the airspace. We will own the perimeter. My concern, to be honest, right now with only getting one of the pilots is, do we know for a fact we had 2 good canopies? I would check that first off. Not too worried about stuff on the ground. Like I said, we're going to have fast movers, rotary wings, special forces all over the place. We just got to find the guy. Hopefully they're in touch. I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm really excited to hear what Dan has to say. Good to see you too, brother.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, like I said, great to have you on. You've trained, you've gone through the SEER training, the search and rescue. This pilot, it's survivable, but it's an uphill battle the longer it goes on.
Yeah, it is very disturbing that we don't have both of them. That's your first reaction. It looks like these guys got hit by probably a heat-seeking missile. A lot of people don't understand, like, as this war has moved on, 13,000 sorties we've flown safely. This is our first shoot down. But we went from stealth aircraft, strategic targets, man, to now we're hunting and killing at low altitude, non-stealth aircrafts. In daylight. And there's man pads, they're prolific. And as a fighter pilot, you get no warning. Somebody locks a radar on you, I know they've locked onto me. But these heat-seeking missiles, I get no warning. So if I don't visually acquire it, it slams into my F-15E. I'm making a split-second ejection decision, and they would be coming out at the same time, based on the debris that we've seen. So big concern there. I'm not surprised that has happened. We've got great strategy. We're fighting it the right way, but we're starting to get into the knife fight in the phone booth with our fighter aircraft. We had an A-10 go down. And so very hopeful that we're going to find whichever one. If it was a backseater or front seater, we don't know. But you covered it beautifully. Your monologue leading into this. Night is our friend. As a fighter pilot, man, you want to get out at night, 100%. Because our ability to escape and evade get really small, and hopefully call in pararescue, who we know, man, they're the most unsung, toughest guys out there coming to rescue wimpy guys like us when we get out of a fighter jet.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, as a JTAC, I couldn't thank you guys more for being above my head. So, I mean, that goes both ways. But as you know, as Dan just said, Rob, we had an A-10 that we believe, it's being reported, was shot down. It landed, and apparently the pilot is okay. But we also had people on the ground with small arms, AK-47s, shot at one of our helicopters, and that actually had to land elsewhere because of that.
Yeah, if an A-10 is getting shot down or even diverted because of enemy fire, it's a very serious fight on the ground. An A-10 is basically a really long Gatling gun with a titanium tub that an Air Force guy flies. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on the ground. A lot of people don't know what's going on the ground. That's a good thing too. Like Dan was saying, it is disturbing. We haven't heard from this pilot yet. The good news is we have guys that are ready to pounce on anything. And if there's gunfire, believe me, we have guys that want to go. There's Marines nearby. They don't shy away from the gunfire there at all. Yeah. It is good to see this guys on the ground and guys like Dan in the air, because I've had my butt saved by the Air Force more than once. We've gone in and grabbed Air Force guys. I mean, this is serious though. This is what we do. This is very. Political parties don't matter right now. It's what we're going to do. And I mean, today's Good Friday. We launched after Captain Richard Phillips to the Boxer, which is over there right now, same day. And, we'll do everything to get an American back. Yeah,
but Dan, let's talk about the fact that our allies have not, there's no reports that I have found, and I hope I'm wrong, but there's no reports that I have found that any of our allies in anywhere in NATO or Europe or any of this stuff has offered, say, hey, you know what, we're in now, we're going to get your guy.
Yeah, so I've heard whispers of Israel intel helping, but
they better. They helped get us in this conflict.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I'm not contradicting. I mean, we're all so disappointed by the response from our quote allies over there. But if I'm on the ground right now, I don't want the Keystone Cops involved. I want our CSAR teams. I want our pararescue. As fighter pilots, it's all about staying ready so we don't have to get ready. So we have rehearsed this when it happens, and having a coalition force in there is just one more level of comms to potentially muddy this thing up. I want our boys coming to get me if I'm on the ground, not an excuse for the lack of participation, because we know why we're over there. I mean, it is the Strait of Hormuz. It's 20% of the world's oil flow in a 20-mile stretch, and we're energy independent. This is not about us. It is about Europe. It is about Japan. These people should be stepping up in a huge way to support us.
Rob, real quick, Trump's now targeting infrastructure as a response to this. He says right here, the biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never used again, much more to follow. It is time for Iran to make a deal before it's too late, and there's nothing left that will still could become a great country. This is a big escalation to take out infrastructure.
Of course, this is a big escalation, and you know, we've said this before. I personally did in 2003. You better be right. And as much as I'd love to go in and punch someone in the mouth and have it be over, doesn't mean it's going to go that way. The enemy does have a say in the way the fight goes. We're seeing it today, and it's the only time the perfect plan exists is when you're planning. Once you get there, Murphy shows up and everything changes. Yeah, no good plan survives the first shot. I tell you though, it's, you know, the more infrastructure we destroy, and this is what Trump's weighing, is the more infrastructure we destroy, is the harder it is going to be to help them recover and build out and be a civil nation again. But Rob O'Neill, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, we appreciate both of you guys.
Yeah, thanks. God bless, and have a blessed Easter, and praying for our guy on the ground.
Bring him home. All right, coming up, Colorado Democrats give the finger to the Supreme Court. The time to slap back, but first, President Trump defying the odds once again. Today's economic numbers through the roof, basically punching the economist in the face, so to speak. Next.
People can't stop talking about Rob Schmitt.
I trust the news from Rob Schmitt every single day.
They say he's no BS.
No BS. No liberal crap.
He hates liars.
The honesty and up-to-date news and none of the fake news.
He tells it better than anyone.
Everything is straight, legit, real news.
He's your voice.
Rob Schmitt, 7 p.m. Wouldn't miss it.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.
I love Newsmax.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
One tiny candle illuminates 1,000.
Awaken! A Great Awakening. Rated PG-13.
Take that, Trump haters. The U.S. economy in March adding 178,000 jobs. That's a massive number compared to what was expected by the experts. Unemployment ticking down to 4.3%. The 178,000 jobs is 3 times higher than the 59,000 that those same experts projected. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett saying the positive movement is due to the momentum the president's policies are creating.
The fact is that there's so much momentum because of all the positive policies, the deregulation, the low tax rates, and you're seeing all the positive stories about no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. If you have your eye on the horizon, as America's corporations do, absolutely explains why job markets are booming.
E.J. Antoni, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. Sir, I'm thinking, wait till the Clarity Act passes, wait till we wrap this war up and oil goes back to $60 a barrel.
Yeah, Carl, oil coming back down is going to be a huge, huge help here, because if we look at some parts within this report, there are a couple of signs of trouble, especially when we look at wage growth. The problem with March was that although you did have some wage growth, it was nowhere near enough to keep up with inflation. And so inflation-adjusted paychecks actually shrunk. That's obviously moving in the wrong direction. So what you want is to continue to see the growth in not just jobs, but also incomes, particularly incomes faster than inflation. You get this war wrapped up quick and you get energy prices back down, we'll get right back on track.
Yeah. But let's talk about one thing that actually, the one bad part about this report was that, we were on a trajectory to have more native-born workers being added and employed and things like that. There were 251,000 fewer foreign-born workers in the job force than a year ago, but it's still the second highest number on record. Foreign-born workers have gone up, but native-born workers were at the second lowest point since Trump returned to office.
Yeah, now one real important thing we want to remember, Carl, when we look at these data sets, they are not seasonally adjusted. So that means that you can't compare 1 month to the next. It's not quite a one-to-one comparison. For example, during the holidays, you see a lot of native-born Americans get hired, especially with part-time work. They try to earn a little extra money around Christmas. And then what happens in January? Well, they all quit. And that's especially true for college and high school kids who all go back to school. So what I'm getting at is you predictably see a big decline every January. You don't want to just compare January right with December. But if you do an annual comparison, January of last year to January of this year, you don't have to worry about that seasonality. So now that being said, you still saw an annual decline when it came to native-born employment, and that's something we've got to keep a real close eye on in the future.
Yeah, but also under President Trump, check out the number of factory construction jobs. And this has actually really got me excited because we were told these jobs were long gone, but they're booming from 9,300 in Q1 last year to 54,000 in Q1 this year.
Right now, outside of healthcare, Carl, these construction jobs were one of the biggest additions last month in terms of payrolls to the labor market. So it's really, really great to see the construction jobs, I think, in particular, because what we're seeing here are people building factories that in the future are going to employ more manufacturing workers. So it's not simply that we're building something and there's no more employment gains thereafter. We're looking at assets that are going to continue to employ people for the foreseeable future. So good news there.
Also, remember all the libs were like, oh, eggs are terrible, blah, blah, blah. When is Trump going to bring that? Well, they're down 80%.
Yeah, it has definitely been good to see a lot of these different prices come back down. Now, of course, in March, the fly in the ointment was, everybody knows it, energy prices. And that's why it's so imperative that you get this conflict wrapped up as soon as possible so that you can get that strait reopened, so that you can get the energy flowing again. The lower energy prices really were the key driver behind lower inflation prints in the first year of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, well, the other thing, too, which not a lot of people are talking about, they're talking about the DHS shutdown, obviously the bombing campaign in Iran, the Clarity Act. This could open trillions of private investment dollars that are being held in banks to be allowed to be invested in crypto, and apparently it's like creeping very close to being passed. I mean, this could make millionaires overnight.
Yeah, Carl, I think it's really imperative that when you have an asset class like crypto that has grown so quickly, that you have a reasonable regulatory framework, something that everybody can understand, and a set of rules that everybody can play by.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainty. There's no certainty, and it's basically the Wild West, especially if you're in, like, DEX coins and stuff. Like, I'm an XRP guy, that's just me, but this is so monumental that I don't think people realize that how much, I mean, we're talking about shifting potentially 20% of private capital in the world.
Yeah, and this is especially true when we start talking about stable coins and other cryptocurrencies that essentially have backing of already widely used currency.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. EJ Antoni, come back anytime.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, coming up, new warnings surrounding Act Blue suggesting it may have misled Congress. Weird, left the door wide open for foreign money and other stuff to flow into U.S. elections. I thought we talked. Oh, we did talk about this a year ago. We'll remind you next.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beats, and I swear by it.
Super Beats is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beats.
Try Super Beats today at human.com.
Support your long-term health with Fatty 15, the science-backed, award-winning Pure C15 supplement.
Fatty 15 is reversing aging at the cellular level, and I know it's doing what I want it to do, which is improve longevity and wellness.
Discover more at fatty15.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED.
Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED,
then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Hey y'all, so I just downloaded the Experian app because I wanted to check my FICO score, but it does so much more. This thing shows you your FICO score, you can get your credit card recommendations, and it shows you ways to save money.
Do so much more than get your FICO score. Download the Experian app now.
We get some breaking news on our opening story tonight. In a new interview with The Independent, President Trump is not saying what the U.S. will do if the missing pilot in Iran is harmed in any way. Trump saying, well, I can't comment on it because we hope that's not going to happen. I know he backs our troops. But talk about an act of defiance. Just days after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-1, Ketanji Brown Jackson is in the clouds, that Colorado's ban on conversion therapy in talk sessions and stuff like that violated the First Amendment. So people, yes, you can convince people to not transition, according to the Supreme Court. Well, Colorado said, no, we disagree with the Supreme Court. So they rammed through another bill, HB 261322, 40-23 party line vote, of course. Democrats all voting for it. This bill eliminates any statute of limitations, letting anyone sue a mental health counselor for unlimited damage years or even decades later over whether or not, even if they try to convince them that they shouldn't gender transition in those therapy sessions. This could open the door for what's known as a SLAP defense, short for strategic lawsuit against public participation for conversion therapy. These cases are designed less to win and more to intimidate and silence and financially drain opponents who might not think that transitioning your 5-year-old is the right way to go. The bill now heads to the state Senate, which is likely to pass, also controlled by Democrats, and then it'll get signed from there. But nothing says free speech like a lawsuit over speaking. Editor-in-chief at the Washington Reporter, Matt Foldi. Matt, this is like they just got to go kicking and screaming.
Well, I mean, this is another example of how Democrats are totally in bed with trial lawyers. This would be a huge gift to that group and basically no one else, right?
Oh, 100%. But at the end of the day, though, it's pretty lockstep. Like, the Supreme Court said you can't do that.
Yeah, but why would that matter to Democrats? I mean, they also, with the Scarametti case with Tennessee, the Supreme Court also said that states can ban genital mutilation of children, and you're still going to see Democratic-run states want to push for that regardless.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The Second Amendment does say shall not be infringed, and they manage to screw that one up every time.
Right.
The Democrat fundraising machine, Act Blue, was reportedly warned by a law firm working for that platform in early 2025 that it's possibly misled congressional leaders regarding its vetting of foreign donations. I mean, wow, Matt, that's pretty serious.
I mean, and you noted last segment that you've been covering this. That is true. This is not coming out of nowhere. And Act Blue may very well be cooked. And as you noted, they were warned by their own lawyers that they were misleading Congress. So what did Act Blue do? They fired that law firm and hired another one. And look, why are we talking about a payment processor? Yeah. This is actually incredibly important. Right now, you have every single Democrat in Congress opposed to the GOP's legislation that would make it a requirement to prove your citizenship when you vote. But what we've seen from investigations into Act Blue that have been going from a variety of standpoints, you have Darrell Issa in Congress looking into Act Blue's funding of or being used to fund Palestinian terrorism. Yep. You have this with irregular payments from foreign nationals. What you were able to do on Act Blue as a non-citizen is donate to Democratic Party candidates. Those are the only ones allowed on Act Blue with your Venmo account. And in Congress, there was this bill called the SHIELD Act that Brian Stile has been pushing for years at this point, that Act Blue hired lobbyists specifically to oppose. Now, what would this crazy piece of legislation do, Carl? It would require payment processors like Act Blue to require the 3-digit CVV code on the back of credit cards. Now, you've got to wonder why a political party that would shut the government down in order to defend non-citizens voting is opposed to things that would make it a little bit more difficult for non-citizens to donate. Now, the Democrats obviously have history on their side in this midterm, but Republicans have a lot of cash, and this is a big problem for the Democrats' money machine.
Well, yeah, I mean, and look, the thing is, nobody wants to do anything about this. Thankfully, J.D. Vance is now doing a fraud thing. I hope we'll send this, but this was us over a year ago.
Yeah, there needs to actually be...
Find out that in the past few years, over $200 million of political donations have been funneled through the Democrats' fundraising platform called Act Blue, from a fairly small circle of people who are almost exclusively over the age of 65, retired, very liberal, lower to middle income class, and from our research, it appears that these people, most of them, don't even know these donations are being made in their name. It's not their money. They call these people Smurfs or money mules. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are so many irregular things going on with payment processing on Act Blue. So that would be straw donations using American citizens. Honestly, I could right now donate in your name to a Democrat on Act Blue. If I could I'd pull your address, the farm, list that and donate as Carl Higbie. That would be a straw donation. That's illegal. You have foreigners who are not eligible to donate in American politics using PayPal and Venmo to donate on Act Blue. That's illegal. Wow. You have Palestinian terrorist organizations raising money on Act Blue. Those actually were kicked off on Act Blue. That's illegal.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of things to do. And then, by the way, you have its now former law firm saying, hey, guys,
we told you
lied to Congress. That's illegal.
Yeah. Matt, lastly, Tom Tillis, your favorite guy, actually. Firm rhino on a line of the next AG. Roll this.
For me, the threshold for somebody following Pam Bondi ends the moment I hear they said one thing that excused the events of January the 6th. I've been very clear on that. So I hope whoever they have in mind to follow General Bondi was very clear-eyed on my position on January the 6th. That's why I didn't support two other nominees who were coming through Judiciary Committee, and I won't support any nominee who thought that any element of January 6th was excused.
Matt, I said last night, I got 10 seconds for you here, I only want somebody who was persecuted by the Democrat administrations.
This is what the Trump administration needs to figure out is if there's going to be a cabinet shuffling beyond Pam Bondi now, you got to do it before the election, because if on the off chance, which I don't think is large, that Democrats win the Senate, you're not getting anyone through. So if you want to do a cabinet change, shakeup at all, now is the time to do it.
Yeah, agree. Matt, have a great weekend, sir.
Have a great weekend. Happy Easter and Passover.
Thank you. Coming up, Newsom's sad attempt to diss Trump completely backfires, and it's almost like they knew Biden never had a break. Next.
And who do you say that I am?
He is Jesus. To Christians, he's the Son of God. Watch Franco Zeffirelli's epic on the life, death, and resurrection of this man who changed the world. Watch Jesus of Nazareth.
Oil isn't the only resource hit hard by global events. American farmers are sounding the alarm by fertilizer prices at planting season. Will this disrupt our food supply, raising prices, cause shortages? I'm not waiting to find out, and neither should you. Go to mypatriotsupply.com, get a 3-month emergency food supply. They'll include $200 worth of extra survival protein absolutely free. After serving more than 3 million American families since 2008, you can trust mypatriotsupply.com. Go to mypatriotsupply.com.
My accountant, who uses unsecured email, has all my tax info.
Tax forms have all the personal info thieves need to steal your identity. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
We're down here in Wimberley, Texas, to build a smart home for Dustin Weber.
We want to welcome the Weber family to Wimberley.
Yesterday was just amazing.
The thought that has been put into these smart homes, they've thought of everything that will make his life better.
This home allows me the freedom to experience my children, taking them to bed. This home allows me the freedom to not slip and fall in the bathroom. It is a life-changing experience.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
I don't know if Gavin Newsom and his team just loves giving us content or what, but this is like some sad attempt to diss Trump. Newsom's press office tweets out, retweet if you miss having a president with a functioning brain, and proceeded to use a picture of Obama. It's like they're finally admitting, they just skipped over Biden. They're finally admitting that he didn't have a functioning brain. I mean, good for them, but I guess they felt bad or someone called them out, maybe it was us, because a few hours later they posted one with Biden saying, retweet if you miss having a president with empathy. Okay. Independent journalist Evita Duffy-Alfonso and Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield. Evita, they clearly was a cleanup tweet to bring in Biden.
Right, but I think the initial one was intentional. I think they knew exactly what they were doing because that's the kind of messaging that Gavin's going to need if he wants to be president in 2028. 77% of Democrats under 45 said that Joe Biden was too old to be president. And a little over 50% of Democrats actually approved of Biden while he was in office, again, under 45. So he was completely rejected by the young, energetic Democrat voting bloc. If Gavin Newsom wants to identify himself as the populist candidate, as the young candidate, he's got to disassociate from Joe Biden. And I think that's what the tweet was trying to do initially. Now, they had to walk it back a little bit, but it's actually the messaging that they're going to need if they want to win the Democratic base.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of Obama, his disaster of the presidential center, it's now having a raffle to win 2 tickets to the grand opening ceremony. Yay! But wait, hold on. If you look at the qualifications, that's a promotion only open to U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents who are legal residents of the 50 United States, District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico? Well. I'd probably bet you need an ID to get in there, too.
Well, I'm glad they can define a U.S. citizen at this point now, Carl. It's kind of funny how that's all of a sudden happened. But I mean, it really feels like, especially with the Gavin Newsom press office tweet there, it feels like a Wizard of Oz. And my colleague Natalie Sandoval at Daily Caller said this, that it's like Scarecrow wants a brain, Lion wants a heart, in the sense that, you have to go back, like Evita said, and try and get away from the Joe Biden era because it's the most recent, right? But Obama had at least the idea that he could speak well. You have to admit that at least about him. So Gavin Newsom, obviously, with his most recent speech where he had to apologize because he couldn't, get the words out. Right. I don't think he's even close to that at this point. So,
and I think it was Biden who called him the first clean person. It was just unbelievable when Biden said that. Evita, though, I'm surprised this thing's even opening because they insisted on hiring all these minority people. They're like 4 times over budget. And one of the big problems they're having is like structural concrete because the person pouring the concrete apparently wasn't qualified to pour concrete, and now it's cracking.
Well, I mean, are we surprised? I mean, this is what happens when you have DEI, when you're not hiring people based off of merit. By the way, I actually lived in the south side of Chicago. I went to school at the University of Chicago. This building is ugly, and it's all right. I lived there. The black community.
Keyword lived. You lived.
I lived there. No, some people actually did die in my year. I mean, it's a very dangerous area, and it's a heavy black community, and they're very angry about this building. They think it's ugly. They think it's destroying the community. So, and again, these are like Obama's people, right? This is the black south side of Chicago. It's pretty ironic.
Yeah, no, it is. All right, probably one of the most embarrassing videos, Ashley, that I've seen all year. This is, I'd never heard of this person, Laura Benetti or something like that. She was very upset that she wasn't recognized and dedicated an entire social post on this. Roll it.
Not a single one of them recognized me, and I could not tolerate that, obviously.
I'll be honest, I still don't even recognize her, but like I've never gone somewhere and been like, nobody recognized, like I don't expect anybody to recognize me anywhere. What is she doing? Is she high?
Well, real famous people usually don't want to be recognized anyway. So I guess that shows that she's kind of a D-list celebrity there. I have no idea who she is, if I'm being honest. And she has a hat on in the video. But the fact that she had to dedicate a social media post to tell people, I cannot believe this, that I was not recognized. And I see there she was Mayor of Kingstown, which is a well-known show. But no famous person that's actually, top of the top in their industry wants to be recognized anyway. She's not Justin Bieber. She's not Lady Gaga. She's like a theater kid that wants attention.
Right. Yeah. And she released another post after that saying it was a joke. I'm sure it was a joke. Evita, for the first time in 50 years, New York has announced that they're, quote, easing restrictions on eating fish from the Hudson River, meaning that the general population can, according to their website, can eat up to 4 meals a month of striped bass and some other fish, while children under 15 and pregnant women, they can only have 1 because it's just so star-spangled healthy. They're going down to 1. Carp and smallmouth bass are still considered contaminated. Well, this stuff gets into the Hudson River, and there's you're not supposed to swim in there. There's bacteria and toxic algae and stuff like that. This stuff never leaves the river. I'm not eating a fish from the Hudson.
I'm with you there. I'm not going to eat any fish from the Hudson. I mean, I'm a pregnant woman as is, right? So I'm not going to do it anyways. But I mean,
1 a month.
nobody should. And it's kind of funny. It reminded me of when you had Alex Jones saying, "Oh, they're turning the frogs gay," but it turns out like there's birth control and carcinogens and all these horrible things in the water. And by the way, RFK Jr. actually wrote a book called The River Keepers. It was forwarded by Al Gore about the Hudson River and how polluted it is. And I think it's really interesting that we have this massive MAGA coalition where suddenly people like RFK Jr., who were talking about the health of our lakes and our rivers and the human body in general, are coalescing in the MAGA movement. It's kind of incredible to see. And I will not be eating any fish from the Hudson.
Ashley, are you going to grab your fishing pole and come on down?
No, I don't think so. I mean, RFK Jr., like she said, won a bunch of settlements about this. So I think I learned my lesson then.
Yeah, no, there's like she said, there's all kinds of weird stuff and drugs and freak show stuff going into that river. I am not interested. Evita, Ashley, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, this is actually pretty cool. From pipeline welder to social media star, how one woman is demonstrating the art behind an essential American trade. You are not going to believe the stuff she builds. Next.
You had a CT scan, and the next thing that I heard was you have to have surgery immediately or you have 4 months to live. It was the hardest moment of my life because I felt like the world fell out from under me.
It was the worst news I've ever heard. Our world changed that day.
Every 15 seconds in America, someone like Jay hears the words, "You have cancer." And this year, more than 600,000 Americans will lose their lives to this devastating disease. But hope lives because of people like you. Go online or scan to donate just $25 a month. Your gift will help save lives.
If I have a chance to make it through this, it will be because of the American Cancer Society's focus on research and innovation.
At the American Cancer Society, we're leading the fight against cancer on every front, funding breakthrough research, helping patients reach life-saving treatment at no cost, and giving families a free place to stay near care.
I don't know how many more holidays I'm going to have with Jay. We need a cure now. The American Cancer Society gives us that fighting chance.
Cancer doesn't stop and let you catch up. It's continuing to move. The funding to the American Cancer Society allows us to keep up the pace with cancer.
Your monthly gift helps fund the research and care that families like Jay's depend on. Become a monthly donor today and receive this American Cancer Society t-shirt as our thank you.
Hope is something that has helped me get through this and given me the courage and the strength.
Cancer won't wait, and neither can we. Please go online or scan to donate today. Every minute, every dollar, every act of hope brings us closer to a world without cancer. Donate today.
Buying a new car? You need WeatherTech. Perhaps a nice used car? You need WeatherTech. Or maybe you're still driving Old Faithful. You need WeatherTech. No matter the age of your vehicle, American-made WeatherTech products are the solution. Because messes don't care what year your vehicle is. See? You do need WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection at WT.com.
I'm an artist, and I'm in my studio. I'm hearing the ads about Relief Factor, and I've got pain in my neck, and it's getting worse, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and order this. 2 weeks later, and I've got much better range of motion. I'm able to carry these big canvases around. I'm just very, very grateful that I gave the product a try.
If pain is affecting your life, give Relief Factor a try. Call or go online. Get your 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor.
Folks, you know I have an enormous amount of respect for the trades. I talk about them all the time. They are the one thing that cannot be replaced by AI that makes this country move. Everything relies on them. So I wanted to give a little salute tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to meet a woman who traded welding and sparks in the oil fields for sparks of like literal genius in the studio. Welding pipes in rugged Alberta oil patches as a teenager is where she started. Went to forging like these honestly like jaw-dropping, hyper-realistic metal sculptures that collectors actually fight over. She's proof that grit and fire create masterpieces. The woman herself, welder Jen Loree. Jen, the thing that caught my eye was this eagle you did on Orange County choppers that you mounted to the edge of a bike. I don't have a bank account deep enough, but if I did, I would buy that.
Thank you so much, Carl. Hell of an introduction. Thanks for having me on.
Exactly. We'll send it to your mom. So seriously though, Jen, I mean, we could put some of your stuff up here. I've followed your Instagram for quite some time now we've just gotten connected over this stuff. You literally build these things from scratch. I wouldn't even know where to start on this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a process. I think a lot of people don't understand what really goes into them unless you've welded or done any sort of fabrication yourself. I think it's kind of hard for people to conceptualize how they come together. A lot of people think I cast these, but there's no casting involved. It's all just from the ground up. So a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears into everyone. Well,
it's crazy because like I asked you, you made this awesome thing. It's actually, if we're going to put up your website, but it's on your website and it's literally a skeleton giving the middle finger. And I don't even know if we can show that on air. But I was like, how long does this take? And you were like, this takes like 12 hours of work to make like one hand.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the other part of it too. You know, you see me on Instagram and you see a 40-second reel. So I think people attach that to the work that goes into them, but it's so far from the truth. You know, I'm showing like the tiniest amount of work. You know.
Now, you came from literally welding oil pipelines in like Alberta, Canada. Okay. I mean, first off, how the heck did you get in? Like, first off, there's not a lot of good-looking people in good-looking women welding pipelines in Alberta, Canada. How did you get into that?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a small number of women in the trade up there. I think it's more common in Alberta, but I grew up in a small town, oil field town. Naturally, you know, was familiar with the trades. My dad was in the oil field industry. And also I just didn't know what to do, what I wanted to do after school. I liked working with my hands, couldn't pay attention. So actually I got into it at 15 years old. I got introduced through this program they have in Alberta where high school students can get an early start on a trade. So I'd leave school at lunch in grade 10, go work in the shop. And I did that all through high school and got my journeyman ticket kind of right after I graduated. So
that's wild. Where do people go? Let's put up your website, but you can tell us where people go if they want to get some of these art pieces. I mean, it's actually pretty incredible.
Thanks,
we don't have
Carl.
we don't have the website, but you can tell us.
You can find me at metalmonkeydesignco.com for commissions, and then I got a private gallery I just opened called coalhouse.co, and then Jen Loree official across all platforms.
Okay, yeah, across Instagram. We've been scrolling through your Instagram, which is pretty incredible. I mean, well, you never know. Alberta may actually become part of America after this referendum vote. What do you say?
We can only hope, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be really nice to have you guys come over and join, and then you can just weld stuff and sell it in America with no tariffs. It'd be great.
Exactly. That's the goal.
All right. Jen, we appreciate it. Rock on, dude.
You too.
All right. Well, before we go, the high and mighty New York Times knocked down a peg after trying to dunk on Trump. Man, did they screw this one up. It's hilarious. Next.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
The Reverend George Whitfield has arrived from England to awaken the colonies.
My friends, do you want to be free?
We cannot let the sun set on this nation.
A Great Awakening. Rated PG-13.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet. as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Car trouble never gives you a heads up. It just happens. And with today's repair costs skyrocketing, getting caught off guard can burn through all your money. That's why having My Auto Guard coverage matters. Without coverage, auto repairs cost Americans an average of $6,000 to $7,000. And let's face it, it's not if you'll need repairs, it's when. A My Auto Guard auto protection plan covers any make or model. Car, truck, SUV, even electric vehicles, saving you thousands.
My Auto Guard paid my mechanic $4,800 to fix the engine. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Just call now or go to myautogard.com. One transmission job could cost over $6,000. A new engine could cost over $7,000. But you won't have to pay that when you're protected with My Auto Guard. Now more than ever, you can't afford to be driving without My Auto Guard. Because with My Auto Guard, you don't pay for costly repairs on your car, truck, or SUV. My Auto Guard pays. You can put that money back in your pocket. You even choose the repair shop or dealership. Then My Auto Guard pays them directly, so you don't wait to be reimbursed. Remember, you must get My Auto Guard before a repair is needed.
My Auto Guard paid for my brake repair fast. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Call the number on your screen right now for a free quote. There's no obligation to find out how low your monthly payments can be. My Auto Guard customer service reps, coverage specialists, and claims adjusters are all under one roof right here in America to ensure you always get top quality service from a caring company that stands behind everything they do. Call My Auto Guard now and let them pay for your auto repairs. Act now and get free 24/7 roadside assistance, help with oil changes and tire rotation, plus rental car options to get you back on the road. So don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-218-2031. That's 1-800-218-2031 or visit myautogard.com right now.
The New York Times used to be like the bastion of proper journalisming. The great lady speaks. The left bows and listens still to this paper today. When things like this happen, I absolutely love spiking the football. This self-righteous newspaper running this headline: every Trump threat to abandon NATO hollows it out. Okay, not normal fake news, lefty trash. But to the bottom of the article, and we're given this gem. If we can put that up. A version of this article appears in print on April 3rd, 2026, Section A, page 8 of the New York Times with the addition headline, A North American Treaty Organization Without America. Dude, the guy who wrote it didn't even know it was North Atlantic. They've updated it in their new stuff. I actually paid $4 just to dunk on them today so I could have this. But this is like the funniest thing. The chief diplomatic correspondent in Europe, who has reported on over, allegedly, according to him, 120 countries, doesn't know what NATO stands for, Lydia?
How could they not know? How could they not know?
I mean, this trash.
Yeah. Tell us how you really feel, Carl.
Dude, this is why I don't take anything they say seriously.
No, you can't. It's fake news. That's why they have to tune into shows like yours and Rob Schmidt's right here on Newsmax.
Yeah. All right. Well, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmidt Tonight. I'm Lydia Serrani in for Rob tonight. While America fights a war overseas, another battle rages right here at home. And the victims? Innocent Americans. I want you to take a look at this sweet face. 7-month-old Kaori Patterson Moore, executed while in her stroller in a Brooklyn, New York store. Right next to her, her mother and her 2-year-old brother. Store surveillance capturing the agonizing moment her mother realized that her baby girl had been shot in the head by a stray bullet. There she is looking, and it's horrible. As a mother myself, I can't even imagine. Look at her face. She's unbelievable. The mom earlier today giving an interview to local news, and she asked for her face not to be shown for safety reasons. Listen to her right here.
I just wish I could have did more as a mom to protect them both.
because walking in the street and then that just happened and I didn't realize until I got into the store it just killed me. And I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I miss you so much.
Absolutely heartbreaking there. Yet here's how New York City's Mayor Mamdani saw the tragedy.
We cannot accept this as normal in our city. We cannot grow numb to this pain. And today is a devastating reminder of just how much more work there is to be done to combat gun violence across this city.
Gun violence? No. It's gang violence, Mamdani. Guns are already illegal in New York City. We have some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, and yet where is the outrage over Kaori's murder, that little baby girl? Where are the protests? Where are the marches? I mean, I forgot. In New York, you can kill a baby up until the 9th month while in the womb. So what's 7 months later, right? I guess Black lives only matter if it fits a narrative. This isn't just failed policies, folks. This is failed accountability, a criminal justice system that disguises empathy as lawlessness. Tallahassee, Florida Judge Tiffany Baker, she ordered a convicted child predator to be released on bond while he awaited sentencing. Police say he then went on to kill this beautiful little girl right here, 5-year-old Missy Mogul. This week, Governor Ron DeSantis signed Missy's law into effect, which requires a judge to revoke a person's bond once convicted of a dangerous crime. DeSantis is also calling for the judge who released Missy's alleged killer to be impeached.
You have the power and you have sufficient numbers in your chamber to impeach this judge, Tiffany Baker. Until you start holding these judges accountable, they are going to continue to find ways to benefit the criminal element.
Why not hold the judges accountable? We hold bartenders accountable if a patron drinks too much and then goes and kills somebody with their car, because these are not simple mistakes. These are methodical choices made by leftist judges and district attorneys that allow criminals to roam our streets, including those who shouldn't be in our country in the first place. In Long Island, New York, police handed over this illegal alien from Guatemala to ICE after being arrested for raping a 5-year-old little girl. But get this, under the state's sanctuary policies, he was supposed to have been released without bail. That's when District Attorney Ray Tierney wrote in a statement, quote, 2 progressive reforms had to be navigated deftly to hold the defendant responsible for his alleged horrific crimes. Do you believe that? He had to let that sink in. Meantime, in New York City, DA Alvin Bragg, you know, the guy who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, he gave this convicted illegal alien trans child rapist a sweetheart deal after this guy pled guilty to raping a 14-year-old boy in a bathroom. All this guy got? 6 months. His rap sheet includes arrest for armed robbery, assault with a dangerous weapon. I mean, how many more headlines, headline after headline after headline, story after story, right, of people who should not be in our streets, not be in our country, killing innocent people do we have to read about? I mean, when is enough enough? How about this report of an accused terrorist, a Jordanian national with a prior conviction for throwing a Molotov cocktail at the homes of Israeli forces, but still, he got his green card. Where is the outrage over the murder of this girl right here? Kimberly Flores, a 24-year-old California mother working 2 jobs to support her 5-year-old son, allegedly murdered by these two illegals from Honduras. Once again, both suspects with prior arrests, one of them wanted for murder in New Jersey. And what is going on in Fairfax, Virginia? Of the 4 defendants accused of murder at this very moment, 3 of them are illegal aliens. The legacy media, of course, continues to play cover for what's really going on, calling this guy right here a Virginia dad. Remember, like Maryland Man? Meantime, he's an illegal alien accused of killing his own 3-month-old daughter. Should we be surprised? I mean, after all, Virginia's Governor Abigail Spanberger's first order of business after being sworn in, ending local law enforcement cooperation with ICE. I spoke with the mother of one of those Virginia murder victims, Stephanie Minter, right there. I spoke to her mother, Cheryl. Her daughter, Stephanie, that beautiful woman right there, she was stabbed to death, allegedly, by an illegal alien, that guy right there on the right. He's from Sierra Leone. 30 prior arrests.
The system is extremely broken, and everybody out there seems to be for themselves and not who they're supposed to be for under the Constitution, which is the citizens. The Democrats especially, at least that's what we're dealing with here in Virginia, and not answering questions and just ignoring all of it. And it just keeps going on and on.
On and on. Spanberger, along with other Democrat leaders, refused to take any accountability for these killings that could and should have been prevented.
Governor, what is your message to Stephanie Minter's family? What is your message to Stephanie Minter's family and children who have been harmed by illegal immigrants, Governor?
My question would be why, when there was a tentative deportation order, ICE did not deport them?
ICE had him in custody for 700 days, Governor. Thank you, and an immigration judge would not allow him to be deported to Sierra Leone.
Immigration judge would not allow him to be deported. You know, for hours, I was researching today, trying to find an exact figure of how many people in the United States have been killed by illegal aliens in the last 5 years, 4, 3, 2, 1 years. But there is no clear answer because in many jurisdictions, authorities aren't even allowed to ask a suspect's immigration status. Folks, if we continue down this path as a society, confusing chaos with compassion, it is the innocent who will continue to pay the ultimate price over and over again. Joining us now, Jay Town. He is a former U.S. attorney. Jay, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we are seeing this nationwide. Democrat policies, radical leftist judges releasing criminals 5, 10, 20, 30, like you saw in that Minter case. They're allowed to go back out on the streets. Illegal aliens shouldn't have been here in the first place. The CFO of Florida, Blaine Holt, he laid out a plan to end sanctuary cities for good. Take a listen to this, sir.
The easiest way to get rid of sanctuary policies is maybe we should start charging the politicians with crimes that vote for the sanctuary policies and make them accessories to whatever crimes are committed by illegal immigrants in those jurisdictions, because to me they're absolutely complicit in the crime.
What do you think about that?
I wish it could be true. I really do. I mean, there's some issues with immunity. Certainly civil liability would be nice as well. I am, you know, Lydia, when you read in about that 7-month-old that had been shot, and I've seen more dead bodies than most. I've spent most of my adult life as a career prosecutor in violent crime prosecution, mostly homicides. And anytime you see something, that mother's reaction, that was a human reaction. What these judges, what these DAs, what these politicians with their sanctuary policies, their cashless bail, their defund the police, their decarceration policies, what they are not remembering, what they are deliberately forgetting, as you mentioned, is that it's not a human reaction to blame guns. It's a human reaction to blame gang violence and the gangster with the gun in his hand, who probably is a repeat offender, who's probably a convicted felon, especially if we're talking about New York City. Out of the top 25 most violent cities in this country, all of the DAs and all of the mayors in those cities, with the exception of 2, are Democrats. They are liberals. They are soft on crimes. And there's a point, Lydia, where society becomes so pathologically soft and tender and lenient and forgiving and weak that, among other things, it starts to begin to side with even those who harm it, in this case, the criminals. And it has to stop. All options should be on the table, to include the CFOs.
J-Town, we got to leave it right there. Thank you so much. And by the way, they just caught the second suspect in that shooting of that little 7-year-old. So now 2 suspects are behind bars right now. All right, thank you so much. All right, let's bring in our next guest, Joe Abraham. He's an angel dad whose daughter Katie was killed in a drunk driving hit and run wreck caused by a criminal illegal alien. He joins us along with former Border Patrol agent and border security expert Art Del Cueto. Joe, first to you. Your daughter Katie, killed in January of last year in Sanctuary, Illinois by an illegal alien. And then just a few weeks ago, we see another headline, Sheridan Gorman, shot and killed, also in Sanctuary, Illinois, also by an illegal alien more than a year later. I mean, what is going on? Who has to die? What's it going to take for Democrats to wake up and stop the insanity?
As far as Illinois, it will take a complete sort of throwing out the old garbage here that run this state and start anew. I worry sometimes that the voters here just aren't really into doing that. Nothing will change if you still have the Pritzkers, the Attorney General, you have Preckwinkle running Cook County, the most corrupt county, the mayor. I mean, you've got a clean house in this state if anything's going to happen.
You know, Art, Sheridan Gorman's killer, Jose Medina, is now being charged by federal prosecutors on top of the state murder charges. The feds are charging him with illegally possessing a firearm, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years behind bars. What do you think about, I mean, do you feel confident that even in Sanctuary, Illinois, that one or both of the charges against him will even stick?
Well, I mean, I'm glad they're charging him, but I've been arguing about this for quite some time. You can arrest people, you can charge them, but unless you actually convict them and give them real charges and real consequences, it's not going to stop. Look, that's part of the frustration that I continuously felt while working under the last administration. I saw individuals that were arrested for child molestation, for child endangerment, that left back to Mexico, and then they waited until President Biden was in office. They re-entered the country, and because they were not convicted, this is how dumb this is, because they were not convicted, they were treated as a regular asylum seeker, and they were released in our country. We have millions of people that went through those loopholes and are here. Look, President Trump has done a great job of cleaning up the border, but unfortunately, there's a lot of cleanup that we have to do because of the last administration. And it is very frustrating that we have politicians and people out there that are protesting in favor of these criminals. And unfortunately, people continue to lose their lives. We're going to continue to see that because of the people that were here. Should we wait and stop a drunk driver until he actually kills somebody before you arrest him for drinking and driving? It's the same thing. If you're here illegally, you need to be detained, you need to face consequences, and you need to be deported if you don't have a true case to remain in the United States.
Gentlemen, we have to. It is, gentlemen. We got to leave it right there. Thank you both so much. And Joe, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Thank you.
My heart goes out to you, Joe.
Thank you. It's got to change.
It's got to change. For more on the deadly shooting of a 7-month-old baby girl in Brooklyn, our producer Brent traveled to Williamsburg to get reaction from locals at the scene of the crime.
Just 2 weeks after New York City Mayor Mamdani formed his Office of Community Safety, a 7-month-old baby was fatally shot in her stroller by a stray bullet right where I'm standing in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
This is hurting me from the bottom of my heart.
I heard it was gang-related. They should not be driving mopeds and just shooting people.
Do you think the elected officials like Mayor Mamdani are doing a good job?
No, not really.
He said he was going to combat gun violence, and a lot of his critics were saying, well, you should combat gang violence.
Exactly, gang violence.
You feel safe in New York?
No, I don't.
I don't.
If I feel roughly safe. Outside the neighborhood, no, not at all. I personally feel safe here.
The guy came and grabbed my phone from behind and ran.
So he stole your phone?
He stole my phone.
I almost got pushed inside the tracks. When the train was coming, I felt like I slightly pushed and I almost fell forward. That's the reason why I don't even want to be in New York.
There are people on the streets that shouldn't be on the streets.
A man with 131 prior arrests was recently charged for lighting a homeless man on fire.
131 priors?
There's 100 and something charges. It's almost like, when is it going to stop?
And just this week, the repeat offender who shot and killed NYPD detective Jonathan Diller during a 2024 traffic stop was found not guilty of murder, but convicted on a lesser manslaughter charge.
That is crazy, though. Wow. It seems the people who perpetrate the crimes get away with it, and the victims get the short end of the stick.
It's got to change. It's got to change. All right, coming up. After Iran shot down a U.S. F-15 fighter jet, special forces are now on a rescue mission inside Iran for one of the pilots. One has been rescued, but the other is still missing. We'll dive into the details next.
tax refund is in. And at Blue Compass RV, it's going places. Shop 100 plus locations, over 15,000 new and used RVs. Lock in lower rates with new RVs from $98 a month. Shop tax refund specials at Blue Compass RV.
He's breathing. Okay, we're good.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
48% of Americans aren't getting enough magnesium, which is essential for nerve, bone, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol High Absorption Magnesium Glycinate. It's gentle on the stomach and helps you get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions. And when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-844-752-2141 or visit homeserve.com.
Welcome back. The U.S.-Israel war on Iran is about to enter its 6th week. And at this hour, U.S. search and rescue operations are ongoing for an American fighter pilot after Iran shot down a U.S. F-15 fighter jet inside their Kazakhstan province. U.S. Special Forces rescued one of the 2 pilots, still waiting for an update on the second. But Iran reportedly placed a bounty on both pilots' heads. Iranian state TV sharing this photo, reportedly showing the wing of the downed U.S. aircraft. Sources telling Newsmax that a U.S. Black Hawk helicopter was struck while conducting rescue operations for the second F-15 crew member over Iran, but was able to safely exit Iranian territory and land without further incident. The New York Times also reporting, quote, a second Air Force combat plane crashed into the Persian Gulf region today, and the lone pilot was safely rescued. The A-10 Warthog attack plane went down near the Strait of Hormuz about the same time that an Air Force F-15 was shot down over Iran. Amid all of this, and after reported talks of negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, the Wall Street Journal reporting mediators is saying that the latest efforts to reach a ceasefire have hit a dead end. But President Trump, in a phone interview with NBC News, saying that the downing of the U.S. jet won't affect negotiations. Let's bring in our expert panel. Blaine Holt is a retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and Newsmax contributor. Also with us, Alex Pelbath, retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Brigadier General, let's start off with you. First off, what are you hearing about the second pilot? And secondly, an F-15, is that one of our newer fighter jets? So how is it possible for Iran to shoot it down? The president just said, what was it, the other night, that Iran has no Air Force.
Well, Lydia, let's first go to the most important issue, our downed weapons system officer, who I think, and I'm hearing it from a couple of directions now, but this is not confirmation by any stretch, but I think we're going to get some good news. I think that we're going to find out overnight that we've got our weapons system officer back, but that remains to be confirmed by the professionals. I'm a general who makes a lot of telephone calls. The second part of that is the F-15E Strike Eagle is a formidable weapon even still to this day, but she is an antique because of a broken procurement system that we have. But how would they shoot it down? Well, listen, if you throw enough metal up in the sky, you can get something. Was it a shoulder-fired missile or AAA? Well, we don't know yet. We'll find that out. But war is not without risk, and the risks here are not zero yet. But we still do have air superiority, even though we lost a couple of jets today.
And Colonel, what is your analysis of what we witnessed today?
Yeah, very, very similar to what General Holt was passing along. Air superiority doesn't mean the absence of threat. So we flew for 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan with air superiority, and there was still a ground-to-air threat. So I don't think this changes anything about the strategic situation there. I'm hearing sort of the same thing, that no news is good news right now. The fact that the Iranians aren't touting that they have found the Wizzo is really good news for us. And look, we have some very, very capable assets on scene, the best the planet has ever seen it ever. is looking for the down Wizzo right now. This is one of our specialties in the Air Force.
And Brigadier General, President Trump writing on Truth Social today, keep the oil, anyone? With a little more time, we can easily open the Hormuz Strait, take the oil, and make a fortune. It would be a gusher for the world. And our military, the greatest and most powerful by far anywhere in the world, hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran. Bridges next, then electric power plants. New regime leadership knows what has to be done and has to be done fast. Trump also says that we don't need the oil from the Strait. So, Brigadier General, do you foresee a ground invasion? That I think is kind of the line in the sand for many Americans. We do not want a protracted war. We do not want another Afghanistan, another Iraq, and we certainly don't want, say, troops on the ground.
Yeah, I don't see an Iraq or an Afghanistan part 2. Could you see somebody on the ground with a U.S. flag on their shoulder and a gun? Well, you could. Because here's the other things that we don't want. We don't want the Straits of Hormuz shut down. We don't want the oil infrastructure in Iran destroyed. That's the future economy of the free Iranian people, not this regime that is vaporizing itself as we speak. The other thing we don't want is we don't want the Chinese Navy deciding, or China deciding, we're about to lose our 18% of our gas. We got to get there with our Navy right now. They're staying on the sidelines because we're handling this very well. And the president's tweets, they're a little, or his social media, a little tongue-in-cheek. I think he's onto something. He's sending a lot of the messaging to the European capitals because they haven't lifted a finger. But I think we're on the right track. I think we're going to reach our goals, and I do think it's about 3 to 4 weeks out.
Colonel, we have less than a minute. Do you agree with that assessment, 3 or 4 weeks out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only messaging that's coming out negative is coming from the Democrats, because let's face it, the Democrats want us to lose. They want President Trump to look bad. America struggling in this region right now is good news for them. That's the only negative press coming out. Nothing has changed. I think we are still on the right path to achieving all of our objectives.
And, just the other night, we spoke to General Wesley Clark, who has been a Trump critic, and he said, this is not an operation you want to rush. Gentlemen, we got to leave it right here.
Exactly.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Bueno.
Thank you.
All right. Pam Bondi, she's out as Attorney General in another Trump cabinet shakeup. Could more changes be a coming? We'll discuss that and more.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McBride. I love working at Newsmax because every day we bring you honest reporting with real conversations, no spin. We're not telling you how to think. We're just giving you the facts and letting you decide what's best for you and your family.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cueto Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cueto, the brand I trust.
We right now will forever decide the fate of all government for mankind.
Reverend George Whitfield has arrived from England to awaken the colonies.
Let's try something new. My friends, do you want to be free?
Liberty is a right given by God. We cannot let the sun set on this nation.
A Great Awakening. Rated PG-13. Celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Now playing.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Life insurance is too important to put off another day. That's why SelectQuote makes getting coverage you need easy. Now get up to a $2 million policy with no medical exam and same-day coverage.
Less than a month after canning DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, President Trump now firing Attorney General Pam Bondi. Her Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche will serve as interim AG until they are able to find her replacement. Bondi is a longtime Trump loyalist. She helped with the administration's crime crackdown, fighting human and drug trafficking, but many in the MAGA base felt Bondi was becoming a major liability. Obviously, her handling of the Epstein files, it didn't sit too well with President Trump, where she claimed to have had a truckload of documents, suggested there was even a client list on her desk for her review, and then she had to walk it back, only ended up releasing a portion of the files, the situation becoming a political disaster. Trump also seemingly annoyed that none of his political adversaries have had to answer yet for their political witch hunt that they waged trying to destroy him. Trump writing back in September, quote, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice, indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now." Now the real question is, will there be any more changes to Trump's cabinet coming in the near future? Politico reporting Trump is now weighing more cabinet changes after the Bondi ouster, adding he's, quote, expressed frustration and disappointment with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Labor Secretary Loree Chavez de Remer, and is pondering making additional changes to his cabinet. One source even saying he's very angry and going to be moving people. Joining us now, Amy Robbins, Newsmax contributor. Also with us, Hogan Gidley, former national press secretary in the Trump campaign. Amy, ladies first, what do you think about Bondi, Noem? Who's next?
Well, first off, this is nothing new for President Trump. He has no problem clearing house. If you remember, he had 24 people serve in 15 core cabinet positions due to replacements during his first term. So his doctrine has always been very clear. It's deliver or be gone. And for President Trump, it's not about chaos. It's all about accountability. So yes, a lot of people think that there are going to be many more changes coming down, especially with the midterms right around the corner. And, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the MAGA base needs to get re-energized. The MAGA base has been demanding that promises be delivered. They want to see something done with the Epstein transparency. They want to see deep state prosecutions, and they want to see our government clean up the mess that the Biden administration left with all the illegals in our country. So they need to be getting some things done. But yeah, no one's going to be shocked to see more of this coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, and Hogan, multiple reports suggesting that the president is considering replacing Bondi with EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Zeldin is seen as a loyal figure to the president. He ran for governor here in New York. He's been right there by his side since day one. What do you think? Is Zeldin the guy?
Well, I like Lee Zeldin. I've worked with him for a while. He's a great man, done a great job for the president. Pam Bondi did a great job as well. I know some of the MAGA base may be upset, but listen, you have the lowest crime rate since the 1900s. You have hundreds of millions of doses of fentanyl, which are killing American citizens, taken off the streets, cartel members put in jail. All those things are successes for this administration they can point to. But Donald Trump does this sometimes where he sees, look, we got some successes here, but I really want to focus maybe over on this area. So we're going to make some changes. And look, no one drives harder. No one works longer to protect the American people than Donald Trump. And when you're in his orbit, it's exhausting because he is a nonstop, hard-charging advocate for the American people, for the American way of life. and, of course, to make America great again. So is Pam Bondi. She's a great friend of mine, too. But look, we all serve at the pleasure of the president when you work in that administration, and especially in the White House. And he makes these calls, he makes some changes. And as my counterpart just pointed out very clearly and accurately, we need some jazz moving into this midterm election. If he wants to make some changes to do that, maybe that works.
Amy Robbins, Hogan Gidley, thank you guys.
Thanks.
All right. Only the left would ruin our first trip to the moon since 1972 with DEI and race comments.
It's the story of humanity, not Black history.
This is where Jesus triumphed over death.
Walk the path that Jesus walked. Christians know him as the Son of God who died for us and rose again in victory. Retrace his final steps in this extraordinary immersive tour. Watch Jesus, his passion revealed.
If you know luxury, it's not just award-winning, it's rewarding. Saatva Mattresses supports all types of sleepers. Luxury is handcrafted and assembled in American factories and brought directly to you with our complimentary in-home delivery and setup service. Which is why over 90% of customers would recommend Saatva to friends and family. Saatva, luxury mattresses made affordable.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Your ED could be in your head, but for too long, outdated ED meds have been obsessed with your plumbing, giving no thought to the spark that starts in your brain way before anything even twitches. That's why we made Rougiette Ready, the first ED med that works on both brain and body, with sildenafil and tadalafil to help optimize your body's natural response, and apomorphine to complement that reaction in your brain. So don't just get a reaction, get ready.
Our family started Cane Brew with a dream and a lot of hard work. Now we're thriving, growing, and hiring. Artificial intelligence has made all the difference for our business. We're a case study for how AI is strengthening American manufacturing. Washington needs to help AI flourish. It's vital to our economic security. We cannot let China dominate these technologies. America must innovate and win. Let's protect our competitive edge.
New Cologuard Plus?
Yep.
Colon cancer screening delivered to your door? Check. No prep? Check. Non-invasive?
Checkity check check.
The Cologuard Plus test is not for those at high risk. False positive and negative results may occur. It's the box that checks all the boxes.
Millions are trading crypto, but finding the right platform difficult unless you use Kraken. Industry-leading security and regulatory compliance. Super transparent. Proof of reserves you can see for yourself, and low fees with no surprises. So, if you're brand new or all in, there's education and 24/7 support. It's simple. Buy, sell, or withdraw anytime. Kraken. Looks good on you.
Well, it's been a really great week to be an American. Artemis 2 NASA flight took off to the moon Wednesday. For the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, the Orion and its crew have successfully broke free of Earth's orbit and began the outbound trajectory towards the moon. The planned lunar flyby is expected to take place on Monday. Now, despite this incredible, amazing, historic accomplishment, the left can't help but bring DEI into this.
They are going for all humanity this time, you know. Apollo was all white men. And this time it's not. And I think that really speaks volumes for the journey that NASA has been on. And this is a much more representative crew.
Well, speaking of that crew, NASA astronaut Victor Glover, he's setting the record straight. He gave a perfect response when asked about being the first black man to visit the moon.
This is the human history. It's about human history. It's the story of humanity, not black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history.
I love that, right? Don't you love it too? Dr. Michael Savage, host of Savage Nation right here on Newsmax, he joins us now. What do you think about that? For him to say, you know what, enough already. It is about human history. Forget about the fact that I'm a black guy.
Do they realize that they actually put that guy down, Mr. Glover, by saying he was chosen because he's black? That's what Mr. Glover was saying. It's about humanity. This guy was the top of everything. That's how he became an astronaut, not because he was black. And this guy, the other one, that creep from England or wherever he was from, says it's about blacks in space. They're mentally distorted. Everything they say and they see and they do proves beyond a reasonable doubt that a guy who wrote a book called Liberalism as a Mental Disorder in 2005 was a genius who deserves 3 Nobel Prizes and a Presidential Medal of Freedom, Lydia.
I wonder who that guy was.
Not me. It was someone else. I don't remember him anymore.
You know, China attempted their own rocket launch earlier today, failing miserably as a Tianlong 3 rocket from Chinese commercial firm Space Pioneer suffered an anomaly in its ascent phase. The rocket was developed to compete with SpaceX rockets. America right now is the only country that has yet to pull off something like this, sending people into space. Yet again, they try to bring DEI, they try to bring race. What is the left's obsession when making everything about race? And earlier, my monologue, I talked about this beautiful 7-month-old baby girl, black baby that was killed by a stray bullet, executed while in her stroller. Black lives only seem to matter, right, Michael? They only seem to matter when it fits a specific narrative.
Divide and conquer. That's the whole game of the left. Divide and conquer. Last week, I was incessantly discussing the Communist Manifesto. Their whole and entire worldview is that of revolution. And the way you bring about a revolution is dividing and conquering the people. So if you see it through the lens of revolutionary communism, you start to understand these useful idiots who say things such as that British broadcaster, I assume he's from somewhere in Britain, who was celebrating diversity instead of humanity because he was saying, oh, how wonderful it's about diversity. And the black astronaut said, no, it's about humanity, not about diversity. But these characters are useful idiots who go along with dividing and conquering. Maybe China needs to hire some engineers from Musk in order to get their rocket into space, Lydia. Maybe they ought to hire him to put their rocket up there in space.
Well, speaking of idiots, not Vice President J.D. Vance, his task force already taking action. But in California, we're seeing what's going on there. 8 people have been arrested in major hospice fraud scheme that scammed the healthcare system of at least $50 million, including running sham hospice care facilities that bilk Medicare by using people without terminal illnesses as beneficiaries. Right. This makes 15 people already charged in California's hospice fraud scheme. Trump calls Vance the fraud czar, says he'll be primarily focused on blue states where crooked Democrat politicians like Governor Gavin Newsom, hence the governor hair there. This guy is still trying to run for president. And you've got Illinois, Minnesota, Maine, New York. This is like they've been just doling out our taxpayer dollars. They're talking billions of dollars. But Newsom, again, said that, oh, this is about racism because there are Armenians, right? And that's what also Tim Walz was saying, right? Oh, you're just going after the Somalis because they're black. Do they think we're that stupid?
Yes. Yes, they do. In California, they happen to be right. The voters are that stupid to put up with this. In one example, in North Hollywood, in that same article, a building that had a for rent sign on it was listed as the address for 12 hospices and home health agencies, just like in Minnesota. But look, I've lived here since 74, and I've talked about California forever. I can tell you just from being a man in the street driving on the roads, I knew about this corruption for 30, 35 years now. The homeless industrial racket takes in billions and billions of dollars a year, and where does the money go? It increases the number of homeless. You leave San Francisco and you drive over the Golden Gate Bridge north into Sausalito, That roadway has been broken since I have lived here. How could the roadway on an iconic bridge be broken when they steal money for highway taxes, gasoline, wherever you want to go? Where's the money going? I've been asking about it since I've been on the radio in '94. The bridge itself is an example of corruption. You don't have to look into hospices, Lydia.
You certainly don't. Dr. Michael Savage, we got to leave it right there. Thank you, sir, so much for joining us.
Have a nice day, Lydia. Thank you.
Americans are feeling the effects in the interim of this
and they're
operation.
also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down.
President Trump addressing gas prices earlier this week. Today's national average now a little over $4 a gallon, $4.09. First time it's been over $4 in 4 years. And America, it is feeling the weight of these high gas prices. Earlier today, President Trump posting a very cryptic Truth Social. Keep the oil, anyone? So what will be his next move? Joining me now is Dick Morris, advisor to President Trump. So, Dick, what do you think the president meant by that Truth Social post?
Well, I think that Americans have been incredibly patient with California and with the corruption there and in Minnesota and many other places. And Trump has been very charitable in not unloading on those states and realizing how and making clear how they are to blame for much of these problems. But what's fascinating about this war is that the American people normally it's have a knee-jerk reaction when gas prices go up, poll numbers go down, and there's a feeling that all over the place that there's a major crisis and that the president has failed to respond to it, but not in this case. In this case, his numbers have not been affected by the war, have not been affected by the growing concern about that, and there seems to be in the public an understanding that this is a long-term process. This won't be solved in a matter of a week, and that it's due to the appeasement of Iran by the administration for month after month, really year after year. And I'm struck by the fact that normally when the gas prices go up, the poll numbers go down, but not in this case. People really seem to understand what's going on and to understand the role of the Biden and previous presidents in causing this.
Dick Morris, we have to leave it right there. It's a good thing that President Trump believes in drill, baby, drill. Could you imagine how bad this would have been under Joe Biden? Oh, no, the world would have probably been blown up under Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, right? We'll leave it right there, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. All right, a divisive mayor showing zero respect for slain Irina Zarutska. You know, that beautiful blonde girl that was killed by a career criminal on a train. That's next in News from the Left.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Doctor's Preferred Liver Defense is doctor developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctor's Preferred. Better science, better results.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
We need to do something. We need to save time.
I've got it.
What are you doing? We need to save time.
There.
What just happened?
I just saved time. By buying a car in Carvana. It was all online. Got pre-qualified instantly. Great terms. Oh, we need to get out of here.
What now?
Move those little legs. My car's getting delivered today! Save time and buy your car in Carvana.
My name is Deanna Perazzo, and I'm a professional wrestler. I want to use my spotlight to help T2T because my husband was a combat veteran. Helping vets is so important because they're often the most disregarded people in our society. And so to be able to say, like, we see you, we see the sacrifice, we see the struggle you go through to support us in our scariest moments, that deserves to be celebrated, that deserves to be honored. Please help by donating $11 a month at t2t.org. Let us do good.
My accountant, who uses unsecured email, has all my tax info.
Tax forms have all the personal info thieves need to steal your identity. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
Time now for news from the left. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley really not having a good week. Once again, slamming the mural that would have honored Irina Zarutska. Now a reminder, Irina Zarutska was brutally stabbed to death just last year. She was on a Charlotte, North Carolina light rail train. There she is, by a career criminal, DeCarlos Brown Jr. from behind, slashed in the neck. Here's Mayor Smiley tripling down, calling for the removal of a mural in her honor. Watch this.
This has not brought us closer together as a community. In fact, has been quite divisive and even a little bit ugly in terms of online commentary. I was asked for my opinion and I gave it, and I stand by it, which is I think it should come down. We wouldn't prevent them from putting it up, but once again, I'm not sure that it's helpful to the community. Unfortunately, in this world that we're living in, where absolutely everything seems to be political and gasoline gets poured onto the fire by politicians in Washington or from other places.
What's so, there's nothing controversial about this mural at all to honor this poor girl. This is just a hateful mayor who just doesn't like it. It doesn't fit his little narrative. It's also a reminder of the horrific policies that he ascribes to. In case you don't believe me, let's take a look at Smiley. There he is, masked up. Black Lives Matter, honoring who else? Drug addict George Floyd back in 2020. He helped push residents in his city to riot. Remember these peaceful demonstrations? And yet he has the nerve to call the Irina Zarutska mural hateful. That is some irony there. Joining us now, Brittany Hughes, MRC video host. Brittany, what do you think about Mayor Smiley? it is just so hateful and so divisive. This is just a simple mural to honor this slain girl. And what do you think? He ordered for it to be taken down?
Yeah, it's absolutely unreal when you sit here and you watch a leftist politician talk about a piece of art being divisive. How many murals did we see to George Floyd, who died with his veins loaded up with fentanyl and methamphetamine while resisting arrest? And there were murals and statues and all kinds of public displays, and that wasn't divisive. These are the same leftists who will paint a pride rainbow crosswalk in the middle of an intersection and then charge you with a hate crime if you squeal your tires on it, for heaven's sake. So don't talk to me about divisive. He said that, this mural is not reflective of Providence values. What values would that be exactly? The values of, I don't know, an innocent young woman, a refugee from Ukraine, which I thought 2 seconds ago the left was all about, being able to get on a train and simply sit there and get home without getting stabbed in the neck by a career criminal that had been released from prison dozens of times, who, got up and said, I got that white girl clear as a bell on camera. Are you kidding me? What nonsense is this? If that doesn't tell you which side the left has picked, I honestly don't know what will. It couldn't be more clear. And it's not the side of the American people or innocent people, law-abiding citizens and residents of this country.
Right, they showed it during the State of the Union address, right? They wouldn't even stand up. Do you stand up for America? It's unbelievable. Now, speaking of people that should not have a platform but do, former CNN host Jim Acosta, extremely worried now that his old network is becoming a propaganda network for President Trump. Watch this.
It doesn't take a genius to figure out that they're going to try to impose that same kind of top-down editorial mandate over at CNN, that, hey, we're going to be a little bit more MAGA, we're going to be a little bit more Trumpy. And, you know, I mean, I think that's dangerous. You know, we don't need to have propaganda networks in the U.S.
Isn't that rich? So if you dare even kind of go down the middle, maybe talk about Trump a little bit, that's a propaganda network. Meantime, CNN isn't. You know, what do you think?
Well, I absolutely agree with him that we shouldn't have propaganda networks in this country. Unfortunately, we have a whole host of them. I don't even know if he watches his old network. We over at Newsbusters at the Media Research Center are constantly watching CNN, as well as the other networks, and the coverage is overwhelmingly anti-Trump. I mean, you only have to look at the coverage of, for example, the immigration debate to see just how anti-Trump it actually is. Job growth tripled expectations in the month of March, and we barely heard a peep. So, I mean, clearly, I'm not sure what Jim Acosta is talking about, unless he thinks that simply giving Trump 2 minutes of coverage where the man is allowed to talk without just being dogpiled on by a bunch of leftists screeching their heads off is propaganda. I mean, how dare anything be down the middle of the road? But I can tell you right now, that is not what we have observed over at Newsbusters. The coverage is overwhelmingly leftist, will likely continue to be overwhelmingly leftist because, again, these networks are stocked with liberals that spew their opinion.
And I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't jumped over to MS Now already. I mean, you've got race baiter Al Sharpton. He's going to bat for Kamala Harris. He told Politico, I wouldn't ignore the fact that she's absolutely a potent force in the black community, adding, I do not have any idea whether she's going to try to go again, but I think she's due all the respect for what she did. Well, I mean, what did she do? We got 30 seconds, Brittany. What did she do? I mean, she didn't even get the Democratic nomination on her own. Nancy Pelosi basically staged a coup and put her in there.
Yeah, the party of democracy, right? Well, look, he is right. She is a force. An implosion is a kind of force, I suppose. We have no idea who Democratic Americans would have actually picked because, again, there was no primary. But I think Al Sharpton's suggestion that because she is favored among the black community, again, we don't know that she's the person that they would have picked. They didn't get a choice. But that's exactly the kind of identity politics I think that so many Americans are sick of. Democrats like to pretend that Hillary Clinton, for example, lost because she was a woman. Kamala Harris lost because she was a black woman. No, you lose the presidency when you fail to convince the majority of Americans that you're the right candidate for the job.
We got to leave it right there. When in doubt, blame DEI. Brittany Hughes, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lydia. Happy Easter.
Thank you. Well, speaking of Easter, today is Good Friday, and Pope Leo is marking his first one as pontiff with a historic procession. We've got more next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
We're in a very holy time of the year. We think in terms of a deliverance.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time. This is the home of Galena. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
This Passover, if you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials and matzah. For the Passover holy day, call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. that through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
Benjamin Franklin. Reverend Whitfield. A match made in heaven. Or just a deal made in a print shop.
Two voices.
My friends, you want to be free.
One idea.
The Constitution needs to speak to the heart of these people.
A new nation.
You are the lightning bolt, George. I am just the lightning rod. And who is the source, Ben?
A Great Awakening. Rated PG-13. Now playing.
Today is Good Friday, and marking this day, Pope Leo led the Passion of the Lord service in St. Peter's Basilica today. The pontiff carried the wooden cross throughout all 14 stations of the cross, the first pope to do so in decades. I hope you all have a happy Easter. Rob will be back Monday again. I'm Lydia Serrana. Trust and remember that God is with you in all ways, always. Finnerty is up next.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.